Welcome to the Breakout from Burnout podcast. My name's Aisha Mohammed and I am your host. I am the Burnout Coach for Mums. Welcome to episode 6 of the Triumph Over Burnout Mum series. And I am so happy to be here today with another bold and courageous woman who wants to tell her story, her burnout story. Now, a little bit of background. I decided to start this podcast because in working with women and in also doing some research, there were some things that kept on consistently coming up that let me know that there was a need for some further education and to raise awareness of burnout and the fact that burnout is no longer germane to the office, the workplace, because this is where the whole concept of burnout started. It has now been recognized that this phenomenon of burnout, which is where you will feel tired and exhausted, detached from the people and the places and the things that you used to love doing, maybe being a bit snappy and, suffering with anxiety and overwhelm and not feeling at all like yourself, having sleep issues, gut issues, and just feeling quite hopeless, maybe incompetent, not in present time with those whom you love. These are some of the signs of burnout. Another key thing is mums not being able to put themselves first and often neglecting themselves and not participating in self-care, and this leading to a lot of ill health. So I decided to do this podcast to let people know that, look, you could actually be suffering from burnout. And it's no longer something that is just about the office environment. You can be a stay-at-home mum, you could be a student, you could be a business owner. You name it, this thing can show up in your life. So in interviewing women, what we are open to seeing is how it came into their life, what it looked like, how it felt, and more importantly, how they were able to overcome and to recover from burnout, because you can, and these women have proved it. So with that being said, I'm going to introduce our guest today, Mara. Mara, introduce yourself. Let us know some more about who you are, and then we'll go into how burnout showed up in your life.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. I'm very honored to be here and to share my story with you. Well, a little introduction about who I am today. Of course, I'm a mom and I'm a business owner. I own a fashion brand where I create pieces with hand embroidery and motivational words. My aim is also to support, empower, and uplift women, exactly because, as you said earlier, we tend not to put ourselves first. We forget that we are our most important priority. And I learned that, of course, especially after being a mom.
Mm-hmm.
Because in fact, before we are a mom, we as women, we are always giving and giving and giving, but we remember from time to time, right, to be a priority, even if it's just to go to the disco and get dressed. That is a priority. Something that after you become a mom is a very far away just thought. And I remember, well, my children are now 13 and 8. And it seems everything happened so many years ago, but I still can feel so vivid the feelings, the overwhelm, the frustration, the resentment that I felt at the time. I remember my first child was born when we were living in Mexico. So to start with, I was far from my family. I was running a business. I owned a publishing house, and it was my first baby. So let's start with the shock of the first baby. That doesn't mean that you learn anything, right? Afterwards, but because every baby is different. So
Yeah.
you try to do your best. At the time, I knew that everything had to be by the book. I was convinced that was the right path. Clearly, it wasn't, because I got to burnout, of course. But I remember I was in the hospital ready to deliver, and I refused till the very last second to have the injection to have less pain. Because in my head, if you are delivering naturally, you have to do it naturally. Otherwise, you failed already. So process already started, where everything you don't do by the book is a failure. And you can accumulate a huge quantity of that every second of your life. But then you have this huge rock on your shoulders, carrying around, and then eventually you are squished by it. So anyway, with the new baby, she was suffering with the colics, so she was constantly crying. I remember the first 5 months, especially. I mean, it was just crying, and the breastfeeding was a struggle. Everything was a struggle. I didn't have much help from my husband at the time, so that made things even more complicated, because you find yourself as a mom in such a unique position and so isolated. Because although there are moms around you, you feel you cannot even feel open, because you are a constant failure. And I remember the time I finally opened up and I told a friend that breastfeeding for me wasn't this beautiful, enjoyable event, but it was something I was struggling. I was struggling because my baby was crying. I was struggling because I was too tired at night to hold her and give her time to eat, basically. And when she said, "You know what? I hated it. I hated every moment of that moment of the breastfeeding." I felt that doesn't mean that it's a bad experience, and I'm not saying that. In fact, I enjoyed it with the second one. But in that moment, to have this other woman saying, "Me too," I felt so relieved that I said, okay, so probably I'm not so strange. I'm not so wrong. I'm not the big failure I'm thinking. But that was just a little open window. Of course, then I put up so many other failure in my head. So I remember that we moved from Mexico to Portugal when my baby was 5 months, and still no family around, new country. My husband was working crazy hours. So I was, again, alone with the baby, and on top with the time difference to run my business in Mexico. So my daughter didn't sleep very well, but I remember to put her finally in bed around 11 midnight and start the meetings with Mexico. So my day was almost 24/7. And I thought in my head that I had to do it. That was normal, because having a baby doesn't have to change anything. You still have to be a businesswoman. You still have to give your max as a woman, as a wife, as a daughter, as a mom, as a friend, as everything. You are, Wonder Woman. Although you don't have power.
It doesn't stop. And there are so many mums out there who are highly ambitious, highly driven, that will be, they will be studying for degrees and masters and higher forms of education whilst running their business, whilst having an infant to take care of. It's just amazing what some of us will do. But not all of us tell the story of the struggle behind the big achievement,
Yeah.
So thank you so much for sharing.
Yeah, because we get there eventually, right? Because as you said, we are so passionate. We really want to put another thing on our plate and another and another. So we get there, but eventually, I mean, there's like a blackout. I remember physically, I felt completely drained, exhausted, in need of sleep, that I was having lack of sleep actually, but I couldn't really see it. I mean, now after so long and taking a step back and looking at myself then, I mean, I was really stressing myself to the limit. And finally, of course, our body knows better. So I was, I literally, I couldn't keep my eyes open. And I remember I went to Mexico because we had a huge event and I had to go there. And my daughter was 1 year and a half. And I felt guilty because I was leaving her, guilty because I wasn't in the event completely with my head. So many thousands of kilometers away. I wasn't enjoying anything eventually. I wasn't enjoying my daughter. I wasn't enjoying my husband. It was a constant fight. And I wasn't enjoying my first baby, that was my business. So I understood I had to take a decision. And unfortunately, it wasn't easy, or I don't know if but it was probably the only option I had at the time, or the only option I could see. So eventually I closed down my business, also because the commute wasn't possible. I mean, not so easily possible. And I suffered, of course, from that as well. But bit by bit, physically, I started feeling slightly better because I had maybe more sleep, a bit more time. But at the same time, I put my daughter in a school, because the fact it wasn't good for any of the two of us. I mean, in my head, I had that she had to go to school when she was 3. Okay. But it wasn't possible. I mean, for her and for me, we needed to see other people. We needed to feel other things and have that space of mind that we forget we can have. I mean, if we start putting our lists of things to do, there's nothing left in there. And we just feel like with this burden, and we start the resentment towards ourselves actually, and towards everyone else creating it. I mean, you don't resent your baby is the best can happen, but still it's what giving you all these bad feelings. So things started getting better when she went back to school. But at the time I didn't, well, it was many years ago. For example, the coaching business wasn't so developed, at least we were in Portugal at the time. So I got to realize that I didn't have much many places where to ask for help, to be honest. And I went back to things that I enjoyed. So I always was a creative. I always enjoyed making things, creating with my hands. So I decided to take a course, a drawing course. And from there, I took a painting course, and then a sewing course, and then a millinery course. I mean, my day was into courses that I loved, I enjoyed. And at the beginning, I felt guilty. I felt a failure, a big failure from a professional point of view, I have to say. But the fact that I was enjoying all these activities gave me hope, because it meant that my emotional well-being was still possible. because it's like you don't exist anymore. There's this new little human being taking your energy, your space, your everything, and all your emotions. But that is not true. It's just what we want to think, because we still are a person and we need our own world. And so this detach from the being the mom only helped me to find myself again. Um, Still, I wasn't happy professionally, but I knew that I had to be realistic and I couldn't start um straight away to jump in the job market. Also, because with such a young baby, then other problems otherwise start. So I decided to enjoy the time with her and the time for myself, especially. Then we changed country again. And let's say I was, well, by the time my daughter was 5, it's so funny. You forget what you went through at some point, and it's
Yeah,
only because you forget you have another child.
it's a bit like childbirth, it's terribly painful, but as soon as the baby's there in your hand, all of a sudden you just forget. But before
Yeah.
going any further, I just want to touch upon, some points, which one of them was this thing called mum guilt. So many mothers suffer with feeling guilty because they have aspirations, they have goals, they have dreams, and are working towards it. And some of the things that we have to do that may shorten the time that we have with our children, or just sometimes just having that feeling of just making things up in your mind because your routine with them might change, that somehow we're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And therefore, just feel so guilty. Mum guilt is just so real. And this thing of getting lost in motherhood, and I think it's because partly of societal pressures, and personality trait probably comes into it as well, in wanting to be so very perfect, to be the best mum, to be the perfect mum, and to focus so much on being one that it becomes unbalanced and you forget about yourself. You forget about your own wants, your own needs, and to a degree, your identity, who you are, because you stop doing the things that you used to like doing, in order to form these new routines and activities with the children. And this other thing you mentioned that was just really brilliant, that maybe some people don't want to admit, but it's the feelings of resentment. And those feelings come about when you're not taking care of your own business, i.e. yourself, where you're constantly putting yourself till last, and even to your own detriment, prioritizing other people, whether it's your children, friends, family, your spouse, significant other, but you're not paying attention to yourself. And it's like these inner screams, if you like, what about me, that comes out expressed as resentment, because nobody's really asking you to go over and above in the way that some of us do as moms. And then when you don't feel that things are being reciprocated, resentment comes up. And that's like a beast when it comes to emotions, resentment. And it is an actual telltale sign as to say, look, you need to attend to you and your needs. That's really what the resentment is saying when it comes up. And not many people discuss that part of burnout and of motherhood, which is the feelings of resentment, which are very, very real. So thank you. So go ahead.
Thanks. Because I think in reality, what the baby needs to eat and sleep, right? These are the basic needs. Of course, if you have to feed the baby, you cannot say, no, wait a second, I need a shower. Okay, and it's understandable. But apart from these two needs, the baby is not asking for anything. You feel that you have to. I mean, inside you, you say, no, I have to exactly be this perfection, because you start comparing yourself to others that have a different, who have a different life from yours. So probably for them, it's a priority to have, I don't know, a very tidy house and a crying baby. While for you, the priority is to have a quiet baby and a messy house. You can never compare yourself, because the same way as every baby is different, every mom is different. So there are patterns, of course, but everyone relates to them in a different way. And of course, when you are into it, you don't see it. So you would need someone super partners to tell you, look, from the outside, I can see this, and that, and you can face it. That's when coaches come and help big time. That's why we need you. Moms really, I think that it should be like mandatory that you choose a coach towards the last 2 months of your pregnancy to follow up with you afterwards. Because, in fact, with my second baby that I had when we moved then to Greece, coaching finally was picking up. And I had at the time just one session with this coach, and she said something very simple. She said, try to find something that doesn't engages your brain completely, doesn't allow your brain to wander around, and you have your hands busy. For me, it was easy. I mean, with all the crafts possible to choose from, I chose embroidery, hand embroidery. And it was a big way to save myself, actually, because, of course, there are people who can use, for example, meditation. The moment where you detach from the reality and you are just with yourself, it's so important, because you start going back to who you are. Because the feeling of losing yourself and being, not having an identity anymore. You are the mom of, the wife of, at the time I was in Greece, so I was the Italian, but I wasn't Mara anymore. In some way, Mara, who is, I don't know, a business owner, Mara, who is a good mom, Mara, who is, but it's almost like you lose that right to be yourself. And you have to find ways to connect with yourself again. So for me, it was the hand embroidery that, by coincidence, of course, healing myself became then my business. But it could have been any other. I mean, for me, drawing, painting, probably. Because with the, and although it was the second baby, right? So, you think I learned something. No, you didn't, simply because the baby is totally different. So the challenges can be completely different. For me, it was even another country. So you never stop learning. And I found another detail, because I started finding my identity again and looking at myself again. In a way, I probably did the last before my first baby. It's like you are a person, but you feel yourself. I don't know how to explain this, but probably through meditation, if you start thinking really at the part of your bodies and feeling them, you realize that you are a person. You need to look after yourself. And I remember the pediatrician, he was a saint. He said, look, you want to do everything perfect. Okay. Give your son, you want to breastfeed him? Fine. Give your son at 11 a bottle of milk. If you want to sleep at least 3 hours in a row. And no one ever told me that before. The pediatrician in Mexico said, was this kind of, no, if you breastfeed, then never give her a bottle, otherwise you cannot breastfeed ever again in your life, this doomed reality, right? And it was life-changing. Those 3 hours in a row make me feel in the morning like, yay, I can face the world. Little tricks, but it's important that someone from outside tells you. Unfortunately, yes, you can find them yourself, but it takes time. It takes much longer. So why? So better to ask someone, an expert, to help you through.
Excellent. I'm loving your story and how you were able to reconnect with yourself and, find something that you love to do that was for you. And the fact that the two children were different and presented different challenges, but moving and being isolated, these are some of the things that contribute towards becoming burnt out when you don't have that support network. So support network is something that's really important to find and to build. And even in interviewing one mom, she couldn't really find the support. So therefore she became the support for others, which is something to consider. You may be thinking, how can a person be burnt out and needing support and end up being a support for others? Well, sometimes you just have to fill the gap. And through supporting others, you can find supports and be supported as well. It's kind of strange how that works, but it does work.
Yeah, no, definitely. Also, you are right in the middle of it. So you are the expert, to be honest.
Right, exactly. There you go. Yeah, that's why many of the women that I speak to as well, they through their burnout experiences, myself included, in being a burnout survivor, we tend to serve others who are in that situation once we've been able to recover and learn a thing or two. So everything serves a purpose, I would say, everything. So let me ask you this. If there's a mum out there who maybe is in another country with a young infant and is going through something very similar to what you experienced, what would your words of encouragement be?
Well, the first one, stop comparing yourself to others, but at the same time, find the network you were talking about, because it's a paradox. I said not to compare yourself, but find other people who will tell you their story. Because only if you listen to a variety of situations and challenges, you realize that you are not alone and you are not wrong. You just have a different story. And of course, when you are abroad, you don't have family. Anyway, there are positive sides of that, no? There's not the expert aunt saying, no, in my time, you had to leave the baby cry until she will learn to sleep alone. That, so I didn't go through that, at least.
Yeah, that method didn't work for me when I tried it one occasion. It was confirmed that wasn't the way.
Yeah. I had so many suggestions that I didn't follow. Others I did, but many I didn't. Like leaving the baby in the cold outside to make her sleep, or the crying out until she went to bed.
Yeah, I know. Motherhood is something, really is. But let's not forget, these little beings, they can give so much love and they can be so very wise, for their young years. And it's the purest love that you'll probably ever find. And, once they do grow up, as I'm seeing, because I had children quite late, actually, I suppose. I was like 33 when I had my first child. Those who now their children are much older, they're young adults, they're doing, life. You're just like, wow, look at these beings, and I have mine and they're going to grow up and do, great things as well. So it is definitely worthwhile, this motherhood, and it will teach you so much about yourself and require you to grow up, really.
Yeah, definitely.
To make sure you reach this status of being an adult. This adulting thing is to have you some children, but they bring so much joy, and I wouldn't have it any other way. And I'm sure you can say
of course.
Just try not to get burnt out in the meantime. But how can the audience contact you for the work that it is that you do?
Either on my website, that is actually my name, you can see it on the screen, or through Facebook, also Instagram, or through email, and my email address will appear here.
Excellent. So that is how you can contact Mara. Mara, do you just want to give a little short synopsis of what it is you do again for those who were listening?
Yeah, sure. I create t-shirts, hoodies, scarves, fingerless gloves with hand embroidery and motivational words to empower, support, and uplift women who wear them.
Excellent. Well, I'm Aisha Mohammed and I'm the Burnout Coach for Mums, and I help women to recover from burnout so that they can find their purpose, which is one of the things that happens when you go deep and work on yourself, and align your lifestyle and your activities with that purpose so that you can live life on your own terms. So it's really freeing women from this thing called burnout so that they can find themselves and enjoy life again. So I am here for you if you wish to start your burnout recovery journey, and you can check me out on my website, which is bestyouinmotion.com. And also here on Facebook, which is Burnout Coach for Mums, and that's my business page, and also on my personal profile, which is simply Aisha Mohammed, like my name. And you can go over to Instagram, where I'm on there as Breakout from Burnout. So thank you so much for joining us again for another series of the Breakout from Burnout podcast, Triumph Over Burnout Mum series. I so am grateful for having you on the show with me,
having me.
Today, Mara, and for the watching and listening audience. And I will ask you to share this episode everywhere, because women really need to see this to understand burnout and how it shows up in life, why you need to take action, which is the really important part, so that you can live a more purposeful life. So next week, catch me back Tuesday, 1 p.m. GMT or BST, as we're now into British summertime, whereby I'll be here with another brave and courageous woman to tell you of her burnout story and how she recovered. Till next time, take care.